Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here again to, take these big ideas and boil them down, giving you that shortcut to really understanding complex stuff. Today, we're jumping into what our sources are calling the grand finale of a really significant ancient text.
Mm.
We're looking at the very end of Genesis chapter 10, specifically verses 30 through 32. Now, these lines, they often get glossed over, maybe seem like just old record keeping, but we're going to unpack how they're actually this incredibly powerful summary, a key theological statement, really, and foundational for understanding human diversity even today. So our mission is to dig into that, find the hidden gems, understand not just what they say, but why they matter so much.
And grand finale really is the right term for it. As we explored in our source, the Tapestry of Nations, Genesis 10's grand finale, this isn't just tacked on at the end. This passage, it acts almost like a kind of divine census report. But way more than just names. It gives this structured, very intentional overview of humanity's spread. It emphasizes that diversity wasn't random. It was part of a design. It's like the final authoritative stamp on the chapter's huge task.
Authoritative stamp. I like that. Okay, so let's dive right into that structure. Verse 30, it starts with geography, right? It mentions the borders for Joktan's descendants from Mesha as you go towards Sephar, the hill country of the east. Kind of anchors it in a real place. But then verses 31 and 32, that's where the real weight lands, isn't it? It says, "These are the sons of Shem according to their clans, languages, lands, and nations. And from these the nations spread abroad after the flood." Feels very final. A big declaration.
Oh, it absolutely clinches it, as you
Yeah.
say. Throughout Genesis 10, we've had this incredibly detailed list, almost encyclopedic, families, lineages. But here, these last verses, the text isn't just stopping, it's confirming that a divine objective has been, well, completed successfully. It's like the architect stepping back, looking at this new landscape of
Yeah.
humanity and saying, okay, organized humanity complete.
Yeah.
It tells us this isn't just history. It's a divinely ordered account of where everyone came from and how they spread out. It moves past genealogy into theology, really.
Organized humanity.
Yeah.
That's striking because, if you just skim the chapter, it can feel like a total jungle of names, just overwhelming. But you're saying the structure itself is the message here. And I noticed the repetition. Certain words keep popping up, like a signature. You called it a fourfold formula, these key Hebrew words that paint the full picture of this burgeoning diversity.
Yes, you've really hit on something crucial there. It's the deliberate, strategic repetition of these four specific Hebrew words. They're foundational for how the ancient world understood identity and groups. So first, you have Mesha. That means clans or families, the basic unit, right? Kinship. Then there's Lishorna. That refers to tongues or languages, a really clear sign of linguistic and therefore cultural variety. Distinct communication is key. After that, Kwaishet. This translates to lands or territories. It points to geography, spreading out, having distinct homelands.
Okay, so family, language, land, clear markers of identity. What's the last one? The fourth part of this formula.
The fourth, and maybe the most encompassing, is goyim, meaning nations. Now, this word goyim, it has a nuance here that's really, really important to get. Because later on, in later Jewish tradition, goyim often gets used to mean the Gentiles, non-Jews, essentially. But here in Genesis 10, its use is completely neutral. It just means the nations, the peoples of the earth. No us versus them yet. It covers all of humanity, the whole lot, inclusively. And that distinction matters. If we read the later meaning back into this, we miss the universal scope it starts with. Genesis 10 isn't creating divisions here. It's painting a wide picture of all human diversity, setting that global stage.
Ah, okay. That's a really helpful clarification. It keeps it universal at this stage, not divisive. And when you lay them out like that, clans, languages, lands, nations, wow, the meticulous detail is amazing. It really is like a divinely authored directory, isn't it? Making sure every angle of human grouping is covered, from the family right up to the nation. It paints this complete picture. Humanity in all its diverse forms, but laid out with real intention, real order. Like the author saying, look, this is how humanity is structured by design.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, let's zoom in on just one word from verse 32. You mentioned it was central, nifradu. Its translations often say spread abroad or separated. What's packed into that single Hebrew word? What does nifradu tell us about the plan here?
Oh, nifradu is absolutely pivotal. Yeah, it's what's called a nifal form of the verb purid, and para means to separate, to divide, sometimes to scatter. The naphal stem often suggests the passive thing. They were separated, or maybe reflexive. They separated themselves. But the root itself, kared, really stresses that act of scattering, of making distinct things. So the core insight, which our source Tapestry of Nations really brings out, is this wasn't random. It wasn't chaotic. People weren't just, wandering off aimlessly. No, it was an intended spread, a purposeful act shaping the world after the flood. God intended humanity to expand, to diversify, to fill the whole earth. Remember that command, given to Adam and Eve, then again to Noah. This movement wasn't just something that happened. It was part of the plan. Keep humanity from just staying in one spot, one group.
Okay, so not just that they spread out, but they were meant to. That intentionality, yeah, that changes the feel of it completely. And you mentioned structural genius, how this connects to the bigger story. How does this idea of Nifrdu, the nations already being spread out in Genesis 10, perfectly set up what comes next? That famous story.
Right, this is where you see the brilliance of how the text is put together. It's quite sophisticated. Genesis 10, the chapter we're looking at, it ends stating plainly that the nations are spread out. Nifrdu, the world is already depicted as full of diverse peoples, languages, lands. It's done. And then Genesis 11 comes along and explains the why and the how of that scattering. Through the Tower of Babel story, that's where we get the drama, the specific reason for the linguistic split, the cultural separation, as a result of human pride. The fact that Genesis 10 gives us the result, first here's the scattered world, before Genesis 11 gives the explanation, here's why it happened at Babel, that's profound. It shows deliberate narrative progression, real artistry. It's not just stories thrown together. Nifrdu in chapter 10 quietly foreshadows the big event in chapter 11. It's almost like saying, here's the end state. Let me tell you how we got there.
Wow, that structural insight is, well, it's incredible. It means these aren't just simple stories. They're woven together, layered, using literary techniques. It really shows a depth that makes you appreciate the ancient authors even more, the wisdom in how they ordered things for maximum impact. So thinking about that word nifradu, again, separated, divided, it's easy to see the scattering is just, well, tragic, division, judgment. But is that the whole story? Or does this final statement in Genesis 10 maybe carry a more hopeful message too?
That's an excellent question. And yeah, the tapestry of nations really pushes back on seeing it only negatively. If you connect it to the bigger picture, verse 32 also holds a surprisingly hopeful, deeply theological message. I mean, first off, it's a sign of humanity's incredible survival, isn't it? And multiplication after the flood, going from near extinction, just one family, to this diverse global spread. That's resilience. That's divine sustenance. It's a story of thriving. Second, and this is crucial, it suggests diversity itself isn't a flaw. It's not a punishment, not some regrettable outcome. It's actually part of the grand design. It paints God intending this rich tapestry. Cultures, languages, nations, every single nation, every language, every clan, however different, traces back to these families, back to Noah, one origin point. So unity here doesn't mean everyone being the same, mean a shared origin, common ancestry, despite all the wonderful differences. And this diversity sets the stage, you see.
That's a powerful reframing. Diversity as part of a grand design, not just a consequence. It really strengthens that idea you mentioned, the theological family tree. All this human variety, beautifully woven from essentially one bloodline. I love that. Yeah. Even though it looks like a jungle of names to us, the text implies this divine order underneath it all. One family becoming many nations, but still tracked, still accounted for, still part of one big story. It's a vision where every branch, no matter how far out, connects back to the root. That changes how you might see cultural differences, doesn't it? Not as barriers, maybe, but as threads in this huge intended tapestry. So thinking about this grand finale in Genesis 10, how does this understanding, this foundation of diverse nations, set the stage for what comes later in the Bible? What's the long-term significance?
This is where Genesis 10 really becomes more than just history. It's a theological prelude, you could say. What's fascinating is how this careful listing, this understanding of diverse nations, becomes absolutely essential groundwork for some of the Bible's biggest promises later on. Think about God's promise to Abraham, to bless all the nations of the earth. That's central to everything, right? Well, that promise isn't made in a vacuum. It builds directly on the foundation laid right here in Genesis 10. The whole concept of all the nations already exists. It's been defined, cataloged, traced back. It's spread, affirmed as intentional. So when God makes that promise to Abraham, He's not just speaking vaguely. He's speaking into a world he's already, in a sense, meticulously organized and diversified according to this account. This passage isn't filler. It's not just old genealogy. It's like the sweeping finale of Act 1 and the whole biblical drama. It sets the stage for God's plan to reach the entire diverse human family. It gives that Abrahamic covenant its global scope, its real meaning.
Wow. Okay, so Genesis 10.3032, just a few verses, but yeah, the insights are massive. They really show both the single origin of everyone, and this divinely intended, rich, purposeful diversity springing from it, languages, cultures, nations. It really speaks to the depth woven into this ancient text.
Absolutely. And it underscores how, paying attention to those original Hebrew words, musich, lishitz, goyim, and especially that key verb, nifradu, it just unlocks layers of meaning. It really shapes our understanding of the world, our shared past, and the theological structure underneath it all. They're not just old words, they're like conceptual keys.
So, for you listening, what does all this mean? If this ancient text emphasizes traceable roots for everyone, but also a divine design in our diversity, what might that imply? How does that affect how you see your own connections and your differences with others in the world today? Does recognizing this theological family tree, this unity from one source amidst intended variety, does it change how you view the vast array of cultures and languages around us? Does it make you see otherness, maybe not as something strange, but as an integral, purposed part of humanity's huge, complex tapestry? That's definitely something to think about long after this deep dive is over.